Hey guys, this is Joy Harrisburg, and welcome to my Creator Talk. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Creator Talk.
Welcome back to Creator Talk. I am Joy Harrisburg, and today I am joined with filmmaker Kendra Monet. Her films have been featured at festivals. She's been interviewed by Brox News and Apple TV, and she currently works in publicity at Searchlight Pictures, contributing to major award campaigns while continuing to grow her own creative voice. We are talking about her latest independent short film, Attached, which I'm so excited to talk about this short film. And Kendra, welcome to Creator Talk. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Joy. It's great to connect and be on your platform.
Absolutely. I really just want to kind of jump right in and just let you tell us a little bit more about yourself and really what made you fall in love with filmmaking.
So, my journey with filmmaking started when I was in high school. So, during my junior and senior years of high school, I was in this fellowship program at the Mesos Documentary Center in Harlem. And so, during that fellowship, I started my junior year. And in my junior year, I had no idea, no concept of filmmaking. I saw this poster that was advertising the program during the summer where high school students could learn the fundamentals of filmmaking. And so during that 6-week program, I learned cinematography, editing, sound, just all the aspects of filmmaking, and then also creating my own short documentary in that program. And so that program led to a year-long program where I did another short documentary based on like the friends and like students that were in my class at that time and the college process. And so I used that short documentary to apply to NYU Film School. And so I started film school in 2017 and then I graduated in 2021. And film school helped me learn more of the fundamentals of narrative filmmaking, writing, directing, and also working and collaborating with other people, which was something I didn't really have a ton of experience doing previously because the program was really small that I was in my high school. It was only like two other people. So it was really interesting to really collaborate with people and then also to just learn from professors, really hone in on the craft and also find my voice and the types of stories that I wanted to make. And so I created a few short films and I also submitted them to festivals. And like I experienced the festival run for the first time while I was in college. And then when I graduated in 2021, I started working at Searchlight Pictures in publicity, and I've been there for almost 4 years now, where we work on a lot of awards campaigns. Some of the films that we worked on, Summer of Soul, The Banshees of Inisherin, Poor Things, Real Pain, and so working on those campaigns with high profile talent and like booking press, having experience on red carpets and different festivals really exposed me to a more mainstream side of filming, like the business side of it, as well as the marketing side of it, which is also extremely important. And I started the whole process with the film Attached in 2023. So I joined this program with Black Film Space called an accountability group where we met on Zoom like 5 days a week. And then at night, we would write for 2 hours. And we were with other people on Zoom writing our own individual stories. And so with that whole program, I really started to hone in on the story that I was working on at the time. And then once that program was finished, me and a few other people decided to write a story together. And so the story together at that time was a TV pilot. And the TV pilot was loosely based on Insecure. And so from that group in 2023, a few months later, some of the group members got busy with their own things. And so me and Demetrius Sadler, who's the co-writing and director of Attached, we started to create the story that became Attached. Based on some of the things in the TV pilot, we transferred some of the ideas and concepts and characters into Attached. And so we decided to create a psychological thriller film based on being in our 20s and some of the fears and anxieties that we face as artists and also some of the personal life struggles. and we wanted to craft a story around this character who's 20 something years old named Drea, who's a struggling artist, and how her past continues to haunt her, and how she reconciles with certain decisions that she has to make that really confront her sense of control and have to cause her to reflect on who she is and try to discover her voice in all of this. And so from then in 2024, we started to write another script for a teaser to the short film. And so we did a 2-minute teaser in December of 2024 that basically introduces you to the horror, psychological thriller world and Drea as a character. And so we did that shoot in December of 2024. And then from there, we reached out to Black Film Space to become a fiscal sponsor for our crowdfunding campaign for the short film. And so we crowdfunded from March of 2025 to May. And then we raised half of what we wanted to raise. Initially, we had a $30,000 goal. And so we raised 15,000. And then we were able to go into production in July of 2025 in New York. And then after we finished production, which was 4 days of filming, we went into post production and then we completed post like November of 2025. So we've started committing to festivals and also marketing on Instagram and social media. And we recently released the trailer for Attached.
Wow. That's amazing. That I mean, just hearing your journey and your story is absolutely amazing. And I really want to dive into Attached, but before we get into more about the film, I really want to talk about that crowdfunding because I know as an indie filmmaker, whenever I'm around other filmmakers, the number one question they ask me is how did you fund your film?
Right.
And so, can you just kind of give some tips to any filmmakers out there who are really looking to tell their story, but they don't necessarily have the money or don't know how to go about getting the money?
No, yeah, that's very real. Crowdfunding was a whole process within itself. Definitely, I feel like with crowdfunding, it takes so much time. We specifically decided to crowdfund with Indiegogo. And so with Indiegogo, we chose that platform because you keep anything that you raise. So that was something that we wanted to consider with such a large amount of money. And then we also had perks. So like social media shout outs, marketing boxes. If you donated like a certain amount of money where you would receive the poster or a link to the film, a hat with attached on it. So like we had different incentives going as well. And then we also did like a pitch video so people could know more about us, the film. And so we also did that 2-minute teaser to like show as a visual concept what you could expect from the actual short film. And so I found that for the people that I was reaching out to, I reached out, of course, to friends, family, everyone in my contacts to, donate to the campaign. I also sent a lot of messages to people on LinkedIn and people that I necessarily didn't have communication with. And a lot of people said like the teaser was what like made them want to donate to the campaign because they saw like how much work we were putting in and also they were just really intrigued by the idea behind that. And with crowdfunding, it was reaching out to people just every single day. Like you have to continue to like work on it. It's like its own pre-production process because you have to just reach out to as many people as possible that are within your control. And then also to reaching out, we also tried to reach out to investors and like people that we felt like were well connected in the industry. And you take like meetings with people and then like it kind of doesn't like go anywhere. And that's like part of the process of being an independent filmmaker is like a lot of meetings you take that may not go anywhere, at least immediately. And so it was one of those things where we really relied on like people we knew and everyday people to like help out. And I think one of the things I wanted to point out about crowdfunding that I feel like is really important is just like people don't understand the power of like collectivism and collectively everyone donating. Like you don't have to donate a large amount of money, even if like all the people who like viewed our visual concept had donated $1, we would have been over our amount. But I think that people also have to see that when it comes to crowdfunding, like even if you're donating small amounts of money and you get a ton of people to donate money, you will reach your goal. You don't have to necessarily have big investors, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I think that in the society we live in, people don't realize the importance of everyone collectively coming together. To support a project. So with us raising 15,000, we self-funded like the rest of like what was missing between me and Demetrius. And then we also had like some like friends and family also help.
So I heard you say so much there, like networking. I think a lot of filmmakers don't realize how important networking really is when it comes to making your film. And LinkedIn is so underrated. Like there are major executives on LinkedIn, and you have the ability to get into their DM or their messages and present yourself. So I think that's so amazing. Starting out, these are things that you don't necessarily hear, but you wish you would have heard. I really want to talk about Attached. So I watched it last night, and you had me hooked in like the first 2 minutes. I was like, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting anything that I saw in the first 2 minutes. So definitely, I mean, you kind of told us about it a little bit, but where did this idea for this psychological thriller really come from?
Yes, so the idea really came from me and Demetrius being in our 20s, working as artists and also being in the industry myself, feeling stagnant, feeling that sense of anxiety and fear about just your own projects and how you can really launch them. And even though being adjacent to the industry because I do like work in publicity, it's one of those things where it's like that doesn't really transfer over to like my own independent projects. Like I still have to independently fund my projects and find funding and do everything myself as like the writer and director. And so it was one of those things where it's like as being in that position, it's kind of like you're at this crossroads where it's like, okay, like I'm doing this work in publicity, but then at the same time, I have these projects that I want to do on my own. And so I think with the character of Drea, she experiences these anxieties with her own career as an actress and just trying to figure out like, is this something I should even continue because I'm not seeing the results of my work? And so that's definitely like a feeling that I could relate to. And then also just like being in your 20s and like also the characters dealing with relationship issues in terms of like a complicated relationship where her ex still lives in the same building as her, and also navigating that as well and not feeling like there's space to really deal with that because of all of these like career and then also financial issues that she's facing. And so that was really where like the heart of the story came from in that relatability. And then also like just being deeply influenced by horror and psychological thrillers myself. Psychological thrillers, I feel like were some of the first films that I really watched when I was younger and really like loved to watch. So like Carrie, that was like one of the films that I like grew up watching. And with Attached,
I
we
can
were
see that.
really
I can see that influence a little
yeah.
bit in there.
And with Attached, we were really influenced by like the films of T. West, like X, Pearl, and Maxine, which also follows an actress. And so just really exploring horror from the perspective of self-reflection and like what's going on like in the mind, and what happens when like what's happening in your mind starts to kind of be projected on the outside, and also dealing with like the reality of like what's really happening in Drea's life and then what's sort of her just projecting, and trying to express those emotions and explore her own emotions, especially as an actress and being a creative, sort of seeing like how her imagination runs and also seeing like what's really happening in the story. And so finding that balance. So those were like a couple of the like initial inspirations for it.
Yeah, and I love that. One of my favorite films ever is Shutter Island. It's a psychological thriller. I don't know if you've seen that, but it really kind of deals with that internal battle that he was facing in his mind. and I saw like a lot of concepts similar to your film as well. What really drew you to that internal battle? Because we don't see a lot of movies that really focus on that.
Right. Another film that like I saw like right before like we started filming Attached was A Woman Under the Influence by John Cassavetes. And that film deals with more of like a mental health aspect of it, but still you see like a character dealing with like the internal struggles of like what's going on internally and then also on the outside of like what's really happening. And so I'm really just interested in those types of stories, like exploring women and then having the opportunity to explore Black women in particular, and really like dissecting, okay, like a film that's about us, about our voice and what we're saying. And I just found like Attached to be a great opportunity for that. And like one of the comments that we received on our visual concept was Black women deserve thrillers too. And so like that became like a huge tagline for us because like you said, we don't see a lot of films like this, and especially like complicated stories and complicated emotions centering us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, and how do you, because there was like maybe some intense moments in the short film. How did you stay creatively grounded while directing that film?
Yeah, so I have to give all the credit to Janine Deal, our lead actress, who worked alongside us with like a lot of those like tense moments because we had casted her like almost a year before we started filming, because we did the visual concept a year before. And she, loved the script and like could identify with a lot of those things. And we also worked very closely with her in rehearsal and talking through a lot of the backstory of Drea, and also like a lot of the questions that she had about the character, and then also things that she could relate to. And she also like hired an acting coach on her own to like go through a lot of those like tense moments, like you said in the film. And so when it came to being on set, we had went through a lot of those scenes like a few times with her. She may not have done it like full out like she did while we were filming, but we had gone through it, talked with her like during rehearsals. A lot of times we wouldn't even actually rehearse the scenes. We would just talk her through, what we're saying that the character is thinking and what she's experiencing, and then also she would also like add on to it like her thoughts about the situation. And then when we were on set, we also had like rehearsal days in the space in the apartment. So while we were in the apartment, we were able to like run through certain scenes. And with Janine in particular, like she has a process, like she meditates and like has her own like time alone, like before we start filming. And then she gets into character. And so I think all of that like preparation helps for those like tense moments like as a director creatively, because during a lot of those like rehearsal days that we were in the space, we were able to like talk to our DP, talk to our actors about, okay, like certain creative choices. And of course we had like met with our DP before, but it was really helpful to be in the space with the actors to really figure out certain decision making, and especially with like the cinematography, because there were like very specific decisions made with the creative process for that.
I love, and it really showed, like, it really is such a great film. I can't wait to see where it goes and what else you do with it, because I could honestly see it as a feature film as well. It's really amazing and a story that I really want the world to see. I'm really big on mental health and just the struggles that we face as Black women. So I'm so excited to see where it goes. Like, honestly, when you look back at your earlier films, do you feel like you've evolved as a filmmaker, and, like, any tips that you can give for future filmmakers?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've evolved significantly as a filmmaker. I feel like a lot of my films do thematically have in common about women, and about just discovering yourself and also self-reflection. I think all of those are thematically in all of my films. This is the first time I specifically like explored a different, slightly different genre. but all of them have that element to them, and also like these deep like emotional beats within the story. So like a documentary, I did a documentary in 2019 while I was in college called Pulling the Evidence That Remains, which is about a woman who grew up in the 70s in the Bronx, and it's about like some of the trauma that she faced in her childhood. And then as she grew up, once she became an adult, she fostered children, mentored a lot of people, and sort of like transferred a lot of the challenges that she faced into helping uplift young people. And so that film, it's on Vimeo, and also it's streaming on Apple TV. And I was interviewed by John Turturro, and it's a part of the Changing Minds Young Filmmaker Festival compilation that's on there. And so some advice that I would also give to young filmmakers is that, you know, in your first film, like you don't have to have it all figured out. I feel like it takes a while, and now still like building that skill of refining your voice, discovering different styles that work for you. And sometimes you discover that in like working with other people who like may introduce you to something that you might not have thought of, and then like that becomes a part of like some of your style that makes sense for the film. And so I would say like you don't have to have it all figured out. And sometimes it's better to not have it all figured out, because like when I was in college, I definitely wasn't really thinking about like, okay, like I have to like get into this festival or make it a certain way, or it has to have this goal when I'm done with it. Like I was just making films. And so I think sometimes when you're more naive about like the process, sometimes like you make better work because you're not focused on like that end result. And so I would say to young filmmakers to just be in the moment, to not have like any expectations for like where the film could go. Just do your best with the process and the project itself. And then also too, like feedback is so important. Like we had feedback, lots of feedback on the script for Attached, and then also while we were in the phase of editing with our different rough cuts, we received a lot of feedback that really helped change the film in certain aspects, that we hadn't thought of before. And so I would say like feedback is really important as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you've given such great tips. I think for anyone who's looking to get into film, I tell everyone just to tell your story. Your tips on crowdfunding and networking is amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on Creator Talk. Can you just kind of tell us what's next for Attached and where we can find out more information about you?
Definitely. So for Attached, we're still submitting to festivals. So we're seeing where the premiere will happen and what festivals it'll get into. We also last month released the trailer to Attached. And so that's been exciting to have people engage with that, and really like ask more questions about the project and about future screenings. So hopefully like this year will be the festival run, and you can find out more about Attached and my work at my website, kendramonet.com. And then also Attached has a film specific page on Instagram, at attached film underscore.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much again for doing Creator Talk. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow her and follow her filmmaking journey. And also subscribe to All Things Joy, and I'll see you next time.
Thank